Well, here we are again. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I want to bring you a continuation of the story in the book of Ruth in chapter 1 of Naomi. There are different ways that we can look at life. We can look at a test or a trial as a tribulation, when it's not really a tribulation. It's a test or a trial, but not a tribulation, unless we want to allow it to be a tribulation. For instance, on a daily basis, right now in the United States of America, there are thousands and thousands of people who are facing every day as a tribulation day because they're out of work or because they have problems. That does not have to be a tribulation day. You have to refocus. If you were to go out and work for money for 8 hours a day and come home with a payday at the end of the week, if the Lord has provided some means for you to come up with some kind of payday at the end of the week, why can't you go out and devote 8 hours a day to the Lord? Go out, get up in the morning. You say, well, I don't have enough money to go anywhere in the car. Walk. Go down to the next door neighbor. Knock on the door. Say, hey, I'm Peter Hutchins. I'm a Christian. I follow the Lord. And I got a little tract right here I'd like to give you. And say, it says in here, if you died right now, do you know you'd go to heaven? And talk to him about the Lord. And go to the next neighbor. Go across the street. Go down, walk 3 miles. Walk 3 miles. You worked an 8-hour day for years and years and years, and now you're not working. You need to walk. You need to exercise. You need to do something. You need to take your mind off from what makes life trivial. What makes life a tribulation? Doing nothing, sitting there, doing nothing. That makes life a tribulation. Life becomes a tribulation. Well, Naomi, she had taken upon herself the thinking that her life was a great tribulation because she lost her husband. Well, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people lose their husbands, and they face it in different ways. And you can go right on. If you lose your husband, if your husband's going to heaven, you know that, and he's in heaven, and you're young enough so that you need to find another mate, you need to go ahead and find another mate. You need to set right out and say, this is not going to be a full life of tribulation for me. I'm going to go ahead and walk into this thing with my eyes open and do that. It said when she saw that Ruth meant what she said, she quit talking to her. She said, I see what you want now, Ruth. You do want to go with me. You do want to be my maid. You want to be my servant. You want to help me, my free servant. And you're the one that has chosen me to take care of. Good. So she didn't fret going home. You know why she didn't fret? Because Ruth took the fret away from her. And that's what God will do if you will give yourself to God like Naomi did to Ruth right here. She said, Ruth, you have ended my fret and my worry about going home. I will go home. So when they got there, the people said, is this Naomi? Is this Naomi that left 10 years ago? Is this you? And Naomi said, yeah. But don't call me Naomi anymore. That meant pleasant. But she said, now, I'm not Naomi anymore. I'm Mara now. I'm in the very bitter. I'm in a bitterly estate. I'm in a place of bitterness. I lost my husband and my 2 sons over there in Moab. Well, that was a choice of her husband and her sons. They chose to walk away from God. They chose to die before their time. And on the other hand, remember what Brother Peter said in the last excerpt we did. God knew that he wanted Ruth over there with Boaz, and he knew where he wanted Ruth, and he knew the line that he wanted to bring down through to Jesus. And he had a system working. I do not believe those boys died and went to hell. Those boys went over there, and they died still in the good graces of God, even though they were perhaps being punished for looking at the other gods. But the God of heaven was their God. And then so here we are back in the book. And let's look at verse 19. It says, so they too went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass when they were become to Bethlehem that all the people cried and were moved about them. And they said, 10 years have passed. I added the 10 years. But is this Naomi? And she said, call me not Naomi, but call me Mara. For the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. We blame God. Why should she blame God? Abimelech was her husband. Abimelech took her over there. God didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't have a thing in the world to do with that. Abimelech took her over there, and she went over there. But God did have something to do with her coming back. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Wow, is she blind? Be careful you don't get in bitterness. Be careful you don't get blind. This lady is completely blind. She's at home in Bethlehem. She said, the Lord dealt with me bitterly. No, he brought her home. He has got her home now, and he's dealing with her with tender, loving care. She has got a woman, perhaps, taking care of her that treats her better than her husband did. And she's got one that loves her, maybe better than her husband loved her. And so here they are in Bethlehem now, in the place, the house of bread. Bethel was the house of bread. And they're in Bethlehem, the house of bread and the house of the Lord. And the chosen place that God chose to dwell in different times. And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, but Mara. Verse 21, I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then you call me Naomi, seeing that the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? I don't think so. I think she was wrong. I don't think God had afflicted her one bit. I think the devil had afflicted her. God allowed it. But the devil was the one that had afflicted her, and not God. If she was afflicted, it was the devil afflicting her, and not God. And so God doesn't tempt his people. He tests them, but he doesn't tempt them. But here she is now. So Naomi returned, and Ruth, the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which redeemed out of the country of Moab. She returned out of the country of Moab. I said redeemed, I meant returned. Out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Now that wasn't a coincidence either. That was not a coincidence that they came in the beginning of barley harvest. God knows what he's doing, and he wanted to bless them, and he is blessing them. Otherwise, Boaz wouldn't have been there in the field. He would not have been there on his stallion, riding around looking at his crops, looking at his workers, seeing what was going on. He wouldn't have been there. He was there because it was barley harvest time. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, a mighty man of wealth, of family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. Now he was Elimelech's relative, and it was his responsibility to redeem Naomi. That was the system of that day. He was to say, throw a shoe over the fence and say, I redeem Naomi. And he was to do that. And Ruth, the Moabitess, said unto Naomi, let me now go in the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on the part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. She didn't just happen to. It says here in the Bible, she just happened to end up where Boaz was. No. God made that happen. God made it happen that she was in a part of the field, and he made Boaz come by there, and Boaz was kin to Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless thee. You know, that was a boss. That was a good boss. He was a wealthy man, and he was a good man. Listen to what he said. He came to his helpers, and he said, the the Lord bless you guys. And they said, be with you. And they answered, and the Lord bless thee. Then said Boaz unto his servants that were set over the reapers, who's that damsel? Whose damsel is this over there? Who is she? Where did she come from? And the servant which was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitess damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. She was the Moabitess damsel that came from Moab. And she said, I pray you, let me glean and after the reapers among the slaves, so that she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried little in the house. She didn't tarry at the house. She got right out there early in the morning, just like she was going to work, just like it was important. It was something to do. And listen, that's what God would have you do. Are you in the midst of turmoil? Are you in the midst of trouble? Are you in the midst of no work? Are you in the midst of something? Go make something to do. Go make something to do. Find something to do. Listen, go mow your neighbor's lawn. Go take your lawnmower. If you got one, if you hadn't, go to ask your lawnmower. You got a lawnmower, and say, yeah, say, I want to mow your lawn for you. And if he says, well, how much? Say nothing. I want to mow your lawn for you. I just want to mow your lawn for you. And mow his lawn. Do something. And be of use. You in a healthy body and not doing anything is not good. It said, then said Boaz unto Ruth, harvest thou not? Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field, that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessel and drink of that which is the young men have drawn. And now he's telling her, this is your field now. Hey, you know what? That's what God said. When God saved me and took me out of the alcohol and the drugs and the junk and the field, when he took me out of all that stuff, you know what he said? He said, that's not your field anymore. You're over here now in a good field. And you glean behind those that I've got in the field. And you go behind them and you do with them. And I'll bless your life. And this is what he said. And by the way, he told the young men not to touch her. In that day, there was a possibility, a very big possibility, of being molested by the men in the field. But it was a killing offense. It was a death penalty if a man raped a woman in a field. It was a death penalty offense. If he raped a woman outside of the field, and he had plans on marrying her, he could get away with that without going to death, without being a death penalty. But there was a death penalty for raping a woman in the field. Verse 10, then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said to him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Verse 11, and Boaz answered and said unto her, it hath fully been shown me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knowest not before or henceforth. She hadn't known those people. She didn't know what she was coming into. She knew what her mother-in-law had told her, though, and she believed it. And she knew what her mother-in-law said to do, she did. And she went over to that field and went to work and did what her mother-in-law said. Now, I'm here to tell you today, God has the answer. God has the answer. God has the answer. Are you a bricklayer and you're not working? Go find a bricklayer and tell him, say, hey, I want to come down here and work for you today for dinner. I want to come down here and work for you today. You just feed me dinner, and that's all. And I'll be happy and you'll be happy. and you do your work. At the end of the week, if he decides to just give you 3 dinners or 4 dinners or whatever you work, that's fine. You go home happy. That's the agreement that you made. Chances are, if you do that at the end of the week, he's going to give you a payday. He may work you and feed you dinner. He may work you for 4 days and not say a word to you, and you think you're just going to get your dinner. And you work hard or harder than anybody else on that job. I guarantee the end of the week, you have a permanent job and you'll get you a payday. I tell you what, do what the Lord says to do. And you know what the Lord says do? He says do. He don't say don't. He said do. Go do. Go do it. Get started in it. Go do it. I must go. My time has come and gone. We'll see you next time. Brother Peter, tidbits from the Word.